Good morning, Facebook. Hey, guys. All right. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about kids' books. We're going to swap tips on what our kids are reading, what they love for us to read to them at this age. And we're going to talk just a little bit about, taking your kids to the library, the importance of reading to them, the effect that can have on their development. And I'm going to keep an eye on the comments section. So if you've got a favorite book for kids, toddlers, no matter what age they're at, drop it in there. And I would love to share that with everybody else. And now I'm going to hit live on our other camera. And we're going to try and go live on Periscope, which is going to go onto our Twitter page at Dadsplaining Pod. It might work, it might not. This is a grand experiment. So let's see.
Let's get crazy. Share the link. Whoop.
Hi, my name's Jesse, and this is Brandon back there. If you can see him kind of over the hump there. We are the hosts of Dadsplaining, a fatherhood podcast. If you follow us on Twitter, you already knew that. We are going to record next week's episode right now. It is going to be about books, what books our kids are reading, what we like to read to them. If you've got some suggestions of some favorite books of your own, drop those in the comments section, and I'll check them out later. All right, thanks, guys. All right. Testing, check 1 2 1 2. All right, we are recording. We are live. I'm just going to share the post.
I did the same.
Good man. Looks like we've got 2 people watching already. Good morning, guys. All right. Oops. Tagged the wrong Brandon there.
Whoa.
All right.
Excuse me. Surprise, new co-host, new Brandon.
Yeah. We'll bring in Brandon 2 for this week's episode.
The new model for a new year.
Yeah. All right. And oops. Okay. Here we go.
All right.
Actually, 1 second. One last adjustment. I can barely see you.
Ah. Yeah, okay. I can always slide over, too.
There we go.
I'm just hidden in the corner.
Mm-hmm. I do have a co-host. I swear he's real. All right. You're listening to Dadsplaining, wow. I blinked there. Let me try that again. Need a little water here.
Got the name right, so that's a good start.
Mm-hmm. All right, here we go. Got it. We're going to do it this time, for real. You're listening to Dadsplaining, a weekly chronicle of all the weirdest, messiest, grossest, and funniest parts of fatherhood, hosted by 2 first-time dads. I'm Jesse.
And I'm Brandon.
And this week, we are talking about books, what books our kids are reading at the age that they're at, sort of in the baby-toddler phase, what we like to read to them. And we're going to dip a little bit into how to get your kids interested in reading at an early age and all the benefits of it. Before we get into all of that, though, Brandon, if our listeners want to reach out to us with questions or comments or just to chat, where can they find us?
Yeah, please give us a like or a follow on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at Dadsplaining Podcast. You can follow along with the Facebook live stream every week. And then new this week on Twitter, we are periscoping. You can follow along there as well, so please be sure to give us a like and a follow. And then you can drop us an email at dadsplainingpodcast@gmail.com if you want to reach out to us directly.
That's exactly right. And I just want to remind everybody that we also now have a YouTube channel. I have uploaded the first 10 episodes so far to YouTube. You can listen along there if YouTube is your preferred podcasting app. It isn't for everybody, but it has been said to me that people are finding podcasts on YouTube. So I thought, well, what the heck, we'll give it a shot.
We'll be everywhere. And then you can catch these episodes on any podcasting app as well. So if you don't get the point by now, we're wherever you want to find us. But please do find us and share us with a friend.
Exactly. And if you find us and you like us and you share us, please also leave us a rating and a review. We have 2 great new reviews this week that I want to share. The first one comes from Bry0242 on Apple Podcasts. Great podcast for all parents. This is one of my favorite new podcasts. Dadsplaining gives such a fun spin on the typical parenting podcast and offers a perspective from the dad's point of view. They talk about everything from pregnancy to parenting, and it's not just a great podcast for all you moms out there, but it's a parenting podcast that I can actually get my husband to listen to. I enjoy the laid back vibe of the podcast while also learning so much about this crazy thing called parenting. And I know who that is. That is Britt, who is the host of the Growing Our Family podcast. She's a mom, and she talks about a lot of the similar things to what we talk about every week from just from a mom's point of view. So search for Growing Our Family, Pregnancy Through Parenting podcast if you'd like to check her out. We also got a review from JJ Hawk, who I believe is JJ Wenrick, who was our guest last week. Thanks for leaving us a review, JJ. JJ says, these two do a great job of entertaining and informing from a new dad's perspective. It's fun to hear how much they love their kids and are into being dads. And I mean, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to say, hey, dads, it's okay and it's good to get involved, to be there in a way that, whether your dad was there for you in that way or not, get in there, dive right in. Like that's what we're doing here. So thank you, JJ, and thank you, Britt. And if you guys would like to leave us a review, we would love you very much. So, Brandon, what's new with Noah this week?
Well, we are just kind of getting into some expanded vocabulary, so that's kind of interesting just to see what'll come out of his mouth these days. He's picking up words at a faster clip, starting to string certain things together and kind of almost carry on a little bit of a conversation. But, of course, the best part is that we've entered the no phase. Where he is now using no to answer a lot of questions.
Oh, yeah.
And so, it's always the thing that you kind of worry about because now you got to be like, well, does he actually not want to do it?
Right.
Or does he just enjoy saying the word no?
Exactly.
And this has always been a struggle for us because my son's name is Noah. And so no is built into it, and so we're not also sure if he thinks that his name is No. So I've talked a little bit in the past about how it's kind of difficult to discipline because we can't use the word no very much because that's part of his name.
Yeah, that's
and
tough.
We know for a fact that some of the kids or teachers at school call him No, which I'm also not okay with, but I can't really stop it.
Yeah,
and especially because there's this one little girl in his class who just points to him and says No, and like that's what she knows his name is, which is adorable for the little girl to do, but it's making it really tough on the kids. So if I have any advice, don't name your kid something with the word no in it. That'd probably be a good thing to do, but it's just fun to hear him kind of communicating back to us. I'm actually really impressed at how he's kind of picked up manners, like nice words like please and thank you.
Oh, good.
And he's always kind of had like a little bit of a signal for help. Because we've like tried to do the sign language thing, but he's not really getting the actual sign language. But he understands the word in relation to a movement that he makes, and so we just roll with it.
Yeah.
Once he picks up a specific kind of flapping of the arms or whatever it is, we just go with that. And
I mean that's a pretty good universal sign for help. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like a fists out kind of a thing. So it's always really sweet to like have him kind of walk over to something that he wants you to like pick him up, and he's like please, and then you do it, and he's like thank you.
That's so
and
great.
you're doing those kinds of things, and that's just like every time I hear that, I'm like, it's so beautiful.
I know,
it's so sweet, and I just can't stop. I get a little emotional just thinking about it right there. But yeah, it's just it's a lot of fun to do those kinds of moments and those kinds of things, and just kind of have a little bit of the interaction. And I don't know. I guess I didn't really think that we'd pick up like polite words so quickly because, but then we've also got the no. So you ask him, it's like, do you want to do this? No. But then he goes over and he does it anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And then the last thing is he's really into picking out his shoes right now. So I know that this is kind of a thing where they start to kind of take an interest in their clothing. I don't know if David's been doing this, but he's like really latched onto shoes for some reason. So today you can't see, but like I'm wearing a pair of my gray shoes because Noah went into my closet and literally grabbed it and brought it over to me.
That's so nice.
And I was like, oh, do you want Daddy to wear this? And he just nods his head, like a really emphatic nod. Like he's not always with yes, but he will definitely do the like really big head nod.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna like snap off.
Yeah.
Like he's like super emphatic about it. And so today he brought me a shoe, and then he brought mommy a shoe.
Aw.
And
One
I don't
shoe.
know. No, he actually got both. Like,
Good for him.
He's really honed in and gotten the shoe thing, because he brought a shoe, and then I was like, okay, can you get me the other one? And he goes and grabs the other one. So I don't, he's a genius, basically, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I could see that.
How's it going with you guys?
Pretty good. We're in the same boat, kind of in expanding the vocabulary. We had a big breakthrough this week where David had his first phrase, his first 2-word phrase. And coincidentally, for this week's topic, it was good book.
Hey,
Yeah.
that's nice.
Yeah, so we've got this routine where every day when we pick him up from daycare, we'll ask him questions, and, was it, did you have a good day? Did you have fun? Did you eat a good lunch? That kind of thing. And he enjoys the yes and the no, just like Noah, so we don't know for sure what the real truth is.
Right.
But, did you have a good day today? Yeah. Did you have a yummy lunch? No.
I love the inflection as well. It's
exactly.
amazing.
Yeah. And then the other day when we picked him up, my wife Ashley said, David, did you read a good book today? And it came out literally like this. Good book. So we knew exactly what it was. He was copying her saying good book. And I mean, it seriously, like we got really emotional just there in the daycare hallway.
I'm sure. He's also adding some really fun accents to it. A good book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
He kind of sings along with stuff sometimes, even though he doesn't know words. He's getting to where he's very verbal, even if he doesn't have a big vocabulary. So I picked up like a lot of nonsense phrases. Like when he talks to us, sometimes it's visit. He's kind of, which sounds like Visigoth, which I think was like a period in Gothic.
Yes, he's an architectural master in the making. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's going to be an architect one day. I don't know. But that's really exciting. That's the great stuff. He's still struggling with the potty training. It's something we're still trying to get him around to, but it's going to happen. And in the meantime, we're enjoying these little moments. Yeah.
One of the weird ones with Noah, just kind of the babbling you were talking about, is he's been saying apple for a long time, even though he doesn't quite like apples. He's like okay with them. He's indifferent. But we're starting to think actually that apple means passy.
Really?
And of course, they're not related whatsoever.
Yeah.
But he says it so much, and it has nothing to do with the apple.
Yeah.
But we obviously know that he really likes his passy.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of wondering if that's actually what it is. Wow, I don't know why that one is connected whatsoever, but apple passy, they're not even close.
Yeah.
But we're pretty certain that that's what he's saying.
That's interesting. Yeah, David, when he wants his wubba, which is the wubba nub pacifier with the stuffed animal attached to it, you guys look it up. It's great for kids and toddlers. He'll say bubba.
Okay.
So it's close. It's not exactly what it is.
I don't know what my kid's doing.
Yeah.
But
It's okay. We're getting there. And he's never said pacifier. I don't,
No, yeah.
I don't, But what the heck? Kids are weird. All right. It's a good spot to transition.
Yeah, just a good ending statement. Kids are weird.
Kids are weird. So on to this week's topic. Today we are going to be talking about books. This is a good time to bring this up. A couple weeks ago we were talking about kids' toys. Our kids are in the toddler phase. My son David is coming up on 23 months. Noah is, where's he, around 18 now?
18 months
18
tomorrow.
months, exactly. Yeah. So, they're in the phase where they've kind of transitioned into new sorts of toys, things that are sort of puzzles and build skills, and they're also getting really interested in books now. So we just wanted to take a few minutes today to share some of our favorites, what our kids are really into, and, what you can do to make reading fun for kids. Because it's like if you're around the age where your kid is between 1 year old and 2 years old, like that's the perfect time to start to get them interested in reading, even if it's collaborative, you reading to them. So Brandon, what are you guys reading at home?
Yeah, so I think over, the first year and a half, coming up on 2 years for you guys, it's definitely changed a little bit. It's starting to actually evolve where like books that have always been the staples, we're actually moving to the slightly different set and creating some new staples. As he's getting more and more interested in them, he wants to read other different books or have different views. So we started with what I'm calling like the touch and feel books, which are really great. And anything where there's like a textural element.
Yeah.
There's two varieties that were really big for us. There's the Never Touch-a books, and so we have a slew of those. There's Never Touch a Dinosaur, Never Touch a Monster, Never Touch a Dragon, Never Touch a Shark. There's other ones like that, and so it'll have different animals, mythical or real, of those varieties on the different pages, and it'll have like a little rhyming, sing-songy kind of a thing about it. But each page, a part of the animal, so if it's like a monster, like the belly will have like a raised texture to it, or the claws, or the feet, or the head, or whatever it is. There'll be a different element on each page that they can kind of interact with, and it's usually like a rubbery kind of something where like if you run your hands across it, it kind of catches on it and can kind of make like a little bit of a sound. And so he has just always really loved those from the get-go.
Yeah.
They're getting a little less play now, which is kind of interesting. Like, it's not about just touching the books anymore. It's actually about, like, seeing different things in it. But another one that's really good that we still enjoy is the That's Not My books. So there's That's Not My Truck.
Yep.
That's Not My Monster.
We have That's Not My Monster.
That's
always
Not
been one of
My
his favorites.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Like there's dozens of those. That one in particular I think has the most. Never Toucha has I think like maybe 5 or 6, but there could be a few more. And the That's Not My books are really great as well. They're not always like a texture that you're touching. There can be different types of surfaces, which that sounds weird, but like on the outside of the book, it might have like a rubbery, squishy kind of a thing that you can kind of poke. Versus I've seen ones where it has like the windshield of a truck and it's like reflective surface. So you can't, it's not so much tactile, but you just kind of look at it and it kind of shines and sparkles. Or it'll have like a sandpapery kind of a texture on it that you can kind of scratch. So it's really good and engaging just because they're too young to comprehend like a narrative novel chapter story.
Yeah.
But they can understand like, oh, this is different on this page and I can touch it and it does this and it feels that way. And then you can start to kind of draw in elements. Have you guys enjoyed any of those types of books?
Yeah. So we like the texture books. He was always into That's Not My Monster.
Nice.
Like you said, it's everything from scratchy to fuzzy to soft to fluffy. He really enjoyed that, and he liked seeing the characters on each page too. What we've transitioned to in the past couple of months are flap books, flap kind of books.
Yeah.
There are 2 that he's really into right now that I use to kind of sort of encourage him to get on the potty for potty training. The first one is Who Loves You, but it's Who like an owl hooting. And yeah, there's a soft owl on the front. So it's a nice transition because there is still sort of the texture to it.
Yep.
And when you open each page, there's like a flap. It's like the dog says, and you open the doghouse flap, and there's little puppies in there, and they bark. The cow says, you open that, but they're all like variants of I love you, I'll always love you, but like with puns like I love moo, like a cow. So what he enjoys is lifting the flap and seeing those, but then also me acting them out. So I'll read them to him sort of and do an animal impersonation, or sometimes I'll just make the animal sound instead of reading it. And then the last page is the most heartfelt. It's like a big heart. It says, what do I say? And you open it up and it says, I love you, like parent to child.
There you go.
And then he'll look at me and, it's like a really sweet moment. So he is really into that right now. Another book that he reads is, I think this is more for like kindergartners and first and second graders, but it's called Missions in Space. And it's a lift the flap book. It is kind of a thick board book, but the vocabulary in it is more advanced. Like it's about space stations and astronauts and space shuttles and when was the first space mission and who is Yuri Gagarin, the Russian cosmonaut, and all this kind of stuff.
My.
Yeah, it's very advanced, but he just loves lifting the flaps and
Sure.
flipping from page to page. And there's things that he recognizes, like if he opens it up and there's astronauts doing underwater, zero gravity training, he'll say bubbles because he sees the bubbles.
Cool.
Or if there's a flap and it's a face, he'll say hello, bye-bye, hello, bye, which is amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And, maybe it'll introduce him to words like centrifuge and
Absolutely.
International Space Station. I don't know. It remains to be seen.
Well, when he's not busy being in architecture with the Visigoths, he can focus in on some hard sciences.
He's going to be a space architect. I've decided.
Oh, well, fancy. That could actually be a thing in the future.
Future industry, man. You got to stay advanced.
When it comes to the flat books, I've actually noticed there's what I'm going to call like easy and hard flat books, which it isn't just the texture of the book. It's like how difficult the flaps are to use.
Yes.
Which is actually something that I've struggled with a little bit because Noah's favorite is Where's Spot? Classic book, right? And it's like, where's Spot? Is he under the piano? And you open the piano. Nope, he's not there. It's something else. And you keep going and you keep going.
Oh, yeah, we have that.
And then eventually you find Spot on the last page. So he loves that one, and it's a super easy one because it's just like a tiny piece of a piece of the book, like
Yeah.
not even cardboard, just like easy paper. You just lift it up with like
Sometimes
a flick of
it's
a finger.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Super easy. The downside is that it's a lot more easy to wear and tear that book.
Yep.
And so sometimes you could get books like secondhand or used from other parents or whatever. A wear spot, you're probably not going to get secondhand because it's probably been torn up.
Yeah.
Or it's been folded weirdly by the kid.
It goes from first hand to the trash once it's not
exactly.
usable
So
anymore.
those are perfect because they're super easy to engage with. Like when Noah was even younger than he is now, but he still loves reading that one. That's our car book. Whole separate topic,
Nice.
but like a book
Yeah.
for the car is a must in my opinion. But then we have a different one, which is more that hard board book material.
Mm-hmm.
And we have one that's I think it's like Pika Flap construction dig or whatever, and
Yeah.
it's like all about it being on a construction site and all the different things that the construction people are doing. But those are like extra thick. Same material as like a hard-backed a board book.
Yeah.
And so it's a little harder to actually flip them. And then when you do flip them, unless you're holding it up and looking, it'll just close back down again, basically. So like with the Wear Spot book, if you flip it up, it could kind of stay up, or you could fold it back, basically. With those books, with the board books, it's not the same. So for a while, Noah hasn't really been able to enjoy the board books, even still at 18 months, because he wants to open it and have it be open.
Right.
And it'll close on him and he'll get angry.
Uh-huh.
Or
It's like I have to work at
it
this?
requires a little bit more work
Yeah.
to kind of get your finger under it because it's extra thick and kind of open the flap. And so he can get a little frustrated with that one. I think the books are super cool. It's super detailed, these like deeper kind of books, the thicker ones, but it's like maybe it's a little bit more of a little bit older age.
Yeah, definitely. It's an interesting point when you're talking about durability with these books, like which ones last and which ones don't. I think that one good thing that these like book manufacturers are doing is that they kind of make different versions with different materials for different ages. Like when you are in the infant stage, there's the books that I think Lamaze is the brand that makes them. They're like very, I don't know what you call this material, but it's very silky. You know?
It's like a soft,
Yes.
it's not felt, but it's like a bendy material essentially.
Yeah, yeah.
Where like the kid
Like
can
crinkle paper almost.
it can be that,
but
or
sturdier
it can
than that.
feel like a blanket, like a pillow.
Yeah.
Like it's a soft texture, like
Almost
a piece of
linen.
clothing. Almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, linen. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, exactly. And you open it, and it's still a book, but it's a
Yeah.
book where it's soft and they can kind of get into the tactile thing, but
Right,
they're
they
not
can-
going to be able to tear it.
They
and
can
it's not
rip
heavy.
and tear because it won't. Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Like, that was great for David, from like 4 months on to like 9 months basically, and then he kind of got over that and we got into the board books. We had really had to learn to use the board books because for a while we were getting the books that they're hardback but they're paper on the inside, like Dr. Seuss books.
Yeah.
And we learned pretty quickly that David will rip those pages right up.
Sure.
Because it's fun and it makes a fun sound. So that's how we lost our first version of Brown Bear, What Do You See?
Oh, my.
Which has always been one of David's favorite books. He loves to sit down and we'll read it to him, and the last page there's like all these animals and you can point to him and he'll kind of make the sound, he was almost saying brown bear for
Nice.
a while. And now he's moved on to other books, but then we got the board book version of that, and that's by Eric Carle, I think, is the author or the illustrator. He also did A Very Hungry Caterpillar, which is David's one of his favorites, and it was one of my favorites as a kid too. Eric Carle's one I would highly recommend. There's a million different books by him with like very colorful, vivid illustrations. Kids tend to love it. They make it in the board book version. Definitely worth seeking out when you're at the kids bookstore. Okay.
Talk about some specific favorites. Like one or two more, or we could talk about our own. I couldn't remember which ones are my favorites. I meant to ask my folks.
Yeah, I loved Corduroy.
That's true.
Corduroy
Corduroy
was
is
a good.
good.
One about the bear. And then I was on to like child's and novels by like third grade. So
Yeah.
around the time I learned how to read. But Corduroy was a big one. Very Hungry Caterpillar. Dr. Seuss, of course. We can talk about Dr. Seuss books and Hop on
Yeah.
Pop and the Happy Birthday one and all that.
All right, that's a good deal. One other interesting kind of variety I just wanted to mention, I don't know what category it fits into. It's something I hadn't thought of before, but it's been very helpful, is I think they're described as stroller books.
Yeah.
So they're extra small, and they are like a very tiny little square. So sometimes you'll see like even tiny, like those really tiny little books, and they're just what looks like a regular book, but it's just super small, like it's just a teeny tiny little pocket square book. but there's a particular variety that we found. I haven't been able to find any other ones, but I think it actually says on it that this is like a stroller book or an on-the-go book.
Yeah.
It has a little kind of a hole in the top left where it can hang on a strap.
Oh, okay.
So that you can kind of hook the strap onto, I guess, the stroller handle, and then the book can be attached, kind of like toys that are on like a string or something.
Yeah,
so
like a keychain kind of thing.
Yeah, or like if you have your passy on like a little fastener on the baby so that it can't get away. Same thing with a book, though. And I never thought about that. And what's funny is we don't actually use it in the stroller. Maybe that's its purpose, but what we have found is using it at the changing table.
Huh.
And so what's weird is that this is probably an us-only thing, so you don't have to do the strap version, but one of the few things that has kept Noah from like tossing and turning so much is if he has a book or something to do while he's on the changing table. And there's very little you can give a kid to do, because if you throw him a big book, it's going to get in the way.
Yeah, exactly.
They can't really hold it up, especially at the earlier ages anyway.
When they're on their back.
But like when they're only a few months old, they can't hold a bigger book. Even like a brown bear size book, maybe they can't get.
Yeah.
And then I always have a fear that he's just going to like hold it over the pee or the poop as well.
Yeah, no, I know.
But this one on the strap in particular was really cool just because we have like a little basket that's above the changing table that's on the wall, so it hangs down from that and kind of dangles in his face. And so for one thing, it can be like a toy that he can kind of hit and play with. And then for another one, it was one of the first books he would kind of hold and open and try to turn the pages, and it has like pictures of animals on this one. It's like a jungle safari story. It's like 4 pages. But I just wanted to mention that because I'd never seen that or heard about it. And just like a good tip of how to use books to your advantage as a parent, as a distraction mechanism. And I mentioned the car book idea earlier. Like now, for a while now, for several months, but it wasn't a thing we thought of initially, is to keep a book in each parent's car that you know that they will really like and can be a go-to for them. Don't like resist the urge to bring it into the house, because then you're going to lose it.
Yeah.
And you're not going to put it back in the car. But we always have one book apiece in my wife and mine's car, so that when we set him in the car seat, one of the first things I do is I just grab a book. I'm like, here, do you want to read this book? And that's where the kind of flap books have actually been for us, because they're so fun and they're engaging, and it's always like a game.
Yeah.
And so it's always good to go back to it in the car, even though it's the same book. So that's where we've got Where's Spot. And then one other book that I forgot to mention earlier, which I haven't seen another variety of this book yet, so if anyone knows of it, let me know, because I would totally buy more, it's called Pika Who. It's kind of similar to one that you were describing, where it's different like animals, but it has a hole in the middle of the book, and each page or every other page, and so you open it and it's like peek and then there's a tiny little hole where you can see a portion of what's coming, but you don't know what it is. You turn the page and it's like boo, and it's a ghost. Or you do peek and then moo, and it's a cow, and it's all those kinds of things. And so it's a fun book where it's not actually a flap, but there's like a peekaboo hole there that can kind of intrigue you, and it just like it's the surprise factor, and like I don't know, it just kind of gets the kid excited. Like a flat book, like there's the surprise element.
Nice. That was great. I'm gonna pivot to like the Dolly Parton free book kind of thing. I was also going to bring up how ChickfilA will include toy little books. I don't know if other restaurants, fast food places do that with kids' meals, but it's a good one to offer. So, the one part about getting books for kids is that it can get a little expensive, especially once your kid gets to the age where they're not keeping interest in single books for very long. So you're having to buy expand your library as you go. And of course, you're going to get kids books, when you bring the baby home as gifts, as baby shower gifts and birthday parties and things like that. But one thing I wanted to bring up that I've known about for a long time, but I know not everyone knows about, is American country singer Dolly Parton, national treasure, really, especially here in the South. In 1995, Dolly Parton started the Imagination Library, which is a really cool program that will, if you sign up for it, they will send you free age-appropriate books until your child reaches school age. So it's especially beneficial for low-income families that can't afford to keep spending all this money on books when they're already trying to figure out how to make ends meet. But it's something that, as far as I know, is available to all parents And I think it's not just in the United States. I think you have to check and see on the website if your area participates. You know, if you can actually get the program there. I know that where I am, north of Metro Atlanta here in Georgia, my area is not available. It's not a part of the program. But the website I wanted to bring this up is imaginationlibrary.com. Fantastic program. I mean, anything that can put books in the hands of kids, you know, especially in that sort of preschool age where you really have to get them hooked on it. I think is an automatic win and something really cool that's worth looking into. Another place where you can get free books is here in the United States, especially in the South. There's ChickfilA. It's I think the second largest fast food chain in the United States, even though it's not everywhere. With kids' meals, you can get books instead of toys, which is really nice. You have to ask for them sometimes. Like you have to say, hey, I've got a toddler, I'd like the toddler appropriate book. And they'll give you books. So we've got, I think, like 8 of them at home. And David's got his favorite, which is You Are My Sunshine, you know, the classic song, My Only Sunshine. His favorite thing is for him to hand that to his mom, and his mom will sing it to him, and he'll turn the pages, you know, for each line and, you know, wind up with a big smile on his face. They have books about like different kinds of cars and stuff like that. Like there's a variety of them, and some of them are songs and some of them aren't. The song thing I think is really cool. Like toddlers love books that are songs, especially when the parents are singing them, whether you're a good singer or not. I'm not a good singer,
not at all.
I do enjoy the sing-along books. So, you know, that's just another tip, something to keep in mind. You know, you don't have to go to the bookstore. You don't have to go to Barnes & Noble and drop $50 on books, you know, once a month. There's ways to do it that are pretty cheap.
Yeah, and I would just say, like, make a routine or an activity or, like, a big deal about reading. It doesn't have to actually be a big deal, but you can make it seem like one to your kids. So something that we have always kind of tried to do when it comes to books is, like, if my son walks over to a book or shows an interest in it, I'm like, oh, do you want to read that? And maybe he'll say yes or whatever, or he'll, like, gesture it toward me. I'm like, okay, bring it over to me. Like, now that he can, you know, like, have him bring it to me, which, aside from just being incredibly adorable to see a child walking towards you with a book.
Yep.
Then I'm like, okay, sit in the lap, and, like, you know, you got to come to the reading lap, you know, make it like a thing, which is just fun as well, because then he's kind of, you know, snuggled in with you and you're reading, and it's like an activity you guys do together. Or you can be like, oh, do you want mommy to read the book to you? And you can, like, take it over there to mommy and read the book, and then it goes really great at nighttime as well. Once you've gotten a little bit past the early stage where it has to be like bottle and passy in bed, and you can mix up the style a little bit. I think I talked about this when we talked about sleep training at some point, but when you're ready to kick the bottles or the breastfeeding, reading is a fantastic substitute for that, because it still gives them a routine at night. And so every night, we always, after we get them ready, we always go over to our chair, and we sit down, and we have usually like 3 books that we have on the bedside table, and it's like his favorite 3 books of the moment, which has been of the moment for like 3 or 4 months now.
Yeah.
And we always read at least, you know, 2 or 3 of them, and sometimes he'll say, like, I just want to keep reading this book, basically. And so that's where you've got, like, The Very Hungry Caterpillar, Goodnight Moon, classic Goodnight book, of course. And then we have one that I really wanted to mention that was a great idea that my wife came up with, which I highly recommend. You can get your own book made, and this one is a picture book where we put in, you give them, like, the pictures to use for the book, and so we chose all of the different family members. So every page, it's like mommy, and then a picture of mommy. Daddy, and a picture of daddy. But then we've got that for my parents, her parents, the great-grandparents. So it's not like a 50-page book. It's like 10 pages. Or whatever it is, but you can get your immediate and maybe slightly extended family in there, and with the names. So you get like the double down of, at first he didn't maybe know all the names, but by reading it every night, even though he's not seeing, you know, the grandparents or the great-grandparents, or if they live far away, it's fantastic because he's seeing the faces, and then eventually he's associating the names, and it's been amazing. And especially just because he loves it so much, you can see that he just enjoys it. Like when you flip a page and Pops is on there, like he just like smiles and he's like, oh, you know, and you're like, oh, he recognizes him. And then now, even for us at about 18 months, now he can do like pop, 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 or
Yeah.
like Mimi, Mimi. And, with some of the easier names, like it's really helping him like escalate the association of the names, and it's just it's nice and warm and fuzzy just to like feel like you've got your family there and you can teach your kid about your family. So I really wanted to plug doing that.
Yeah, where did you guys find that?
I will absolutely share the information on how to do it on our page. It's escaping me right now, but it's a thing where you just kind of send in the pictures and the words that you want on each book, and it's not terribly expensive, but I'll definitely share.
Awesome. Yeah, so all you guys listening out there, definitely make sure you're following us on social so you can get that stuff. The last thing I wanted to bring up, I would be remiss if I did not mention the benefit of bringing your kid to libraries. The library, it's just a fantastic American institution. Free books, you can't beat that. But it's also just a fun activity to bring your kid to the library. We've started doing that over the past few months with David. It's definitely not a regular thing with us. It's not something that we do every day or every week. Maybe it's a couple times a month that we'll take him in. But the great thing about libraries is that you're supposed to be quiet in the library, sure, but not in the kids section. The kids section is where you can have some fun.
Yep.
So, and they've always got stuff for the kids there besides just the books. The books are fun. It's great to teach your kid to pick out his favorite book from the shelf and check it out and take it home with him. But they've also got, one library in my area has a Lego table where you can make, you can build Legos, and it's like the big Mega Blocks that are fine for toddlers. Another library in my area has just a row of kids' computers that are touchscreen and have games and informational stuff. So we'll sit down there and play a game where we find different animals and hear the sounds that they make and stuff like that.
Cool.
And he loves that. He really enjoys it so much so that now he'll touch other screens that are not touch screens, thinking they're touch screens. So that's a little hazardous. But, there are libraries everywhere, no matter where you are. If your kid isn't kind of in that phase, it's the perfect time to start taking them to the library, especially when they can walk and run around and have fun, because they'll start to associate libraries and books with fun rather than just work. Nice. Okay. So to close out, I was going to bring up a couple suggestions that our sort of listeners dropped in the comments section.
Sure.
Just a moment. How are you doing on time? It's 8:25 now. We'll wrap up in the next few minutes.
Yeah, we're all right. Yeah, I'm just going to look up any comments on mine as well.
Okay.
Can do a couple of them.
Oops. There we are. Okay. All right. So this week, in preparation for this week's episode, we put out a call on social media for our listeners and just friends of ours to tell us what their favorite book is, what their kids' favorite books are, and we got a lot of really great suggestions. I haven't vetted these. I don't know much about these books, so I can't really speak to them, most of them anyway. But Sarah says for kids under 4, there is Goodnight Construction Site. That's one of her kids' favorites.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that one.
Yeah, I've seen the cover of it. I've never opened it up, but it looks like fun. And, kids, when they're kind of in that age, like under 5, and even between like 5 and 8, they love construction stuff like bulldozers and tractors and cranes because they make a lot of noise and they destroy things.
Oh, yeah.
And they build things, and that's always fun. So Goodnight Construction Site is a good one. David says Hop on Pop. That's actually my Uncle David who got married this week. Congrats, Uncle David. Hop on Pop is a classic. It's one of my son's favorites. You can't go wrong with Dr. Seuss, really.
Mm-hmm. And there's some obscure Dr. Seuss books out there, at least from my perspective. Like, I think there's one that my son likes that I think it's like Happy Birthday to You. And there's this weird story about a boy in the land of Kazoo, and there's a birthday bird who comes to wish him a happy birthday and takes him on like a quick little adventure through town where like all these special things are done for him because he has a birthday.
Aw, I love that.
And there's like hot dogs and like a ketchup and mustard lake, and I don't know, it's just interesting. It's
Dr.
Seuss. It's crazy and weird.
Yeah, that sounds like that. Maybe that sort of phase in the Dr. Seuss, like an library where Dr. Seuss finished writing books, so they brought in other authors to write under the Dr. Seuss name.
Ooh,
that might be one of those.
Dr. S, which is not Seuss whatsoever.
There's also Charlie recommends Pete the Cat, which David loves. Pete the Cat, it's classic. Also Pout Pout Fish, and any of the Disney's 5-minute bedtime stories books. I'm not familiar with Pout Pout Fish. But of course, Disney, they make great classic storybooks. As a kid, I had the golden books, I mostly just drew in them and ripped the pages because they weren't board books, so definitely make sure you're doing something age appropriate.
Nice.
Perry, who is my father-in-law, said Sam's Pizza. I'm not familiar with that one. I'll have to look that one up. But my wife chimed in and said that was the best, grossest book ever.
Okay.
So I don't know what it's about, but now I'm really intrigued.
For sure.
Yep. Pete the Cat also got another vote from Jarrell. Hillary says the book with no pictures, which I had to look this up. This was written by B.J. Novak, who is a comedy writer, and he played on The Office. What was his character's name?
Ryan?
He played Ryan on The Office. The book with no pictures. I remember him coming out with this.
Interesting.
It looks like something very funny because you have to read every page out loud because there are no pictures. She also says The Gruffalo and Dragons Love Tacos, which I haven't opened yet, but that actually I received that as a baby shower gift.
Okay.
And now that David is kind of getting to that age, I'm going to bust that one out.
Getting to the age where you can understand dragons, and so you can talk about that. We had a comment from Abby, a friend of mine, so shout out to you, Abby. She says that with her 15-month-old son, she reads Little Blue Truck about 16 times a day.
Oh.
So clearly there's some magic in that book. I need to check that out. I've heard that reference before, so I don't know if you have any experience with that, but I need to check out Little Blue Truck, apparently.
It's funny how kids get attached to books. You know what I mean? Like they'll want to read the same book over and over and over again. I don't really know why that is, but they get like emotional about the books.
Yeah.
They start to form sort of the bonds with them. It's really interesting.
Yeah, that actually Happy Birthday book I was mentioning by Dr. Seuss, there's this one page where, he gives him like a special flower for his birthday, and it's a scratch and sniff type deal. And so my son learned very quickly, like surprisingly quickly, that you hold your book up to your face and you sniff it. And so now he'll literally just hold the book and like shove it right up to his face and just go... And it has a scent to it. Like you can definitely pick it up, but he loves that book because he just loves getting to that page and then just shoving it in his face and sniffing.
Yeah, and they always have their favorite pages, don't they?
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about that, but David will have some books where he just wants to flip to that one page he likes.
For sure.
And then he'll keep going, but then he'll just keep going back to that one page.
Yeah, like in the Hungry Caterpillar, there's the one page where there's like 8 different food items.
Yeah.
And Noah loves that I point each one of them out. So he would started doing this thing where he will literally take my finger from me and he will go like point. It's like one piece of chocolate cake, one pickle, one slice of salami, and like he just gets a kick out of it, like
Oh man, you know what's funny is David loves that book. He'll fly right past that page though. He literally speed reads The Very Hungry Caterpillar to get to the end where the caterpillar turns into a butterfly.
Yeah.
So I'm having to like speed 1 apple, 2 strawberries, 3 avocados, or whatever it is. It's not avocados.
We skipped over that, but it's a good point. Like, do you speed read it through it, or do you just pretend like the pages don't exist, or how that ends up working? Sometimes I'll keep reading the page even though he's turned it out of my stubbornness of like, you can't skip these pages, they're critical to the story.
Yeah, I speed through them at this point. I don't know how to break that up. Like I'm trying to teach him to be patient and to read each page, but that's not going so well so far.
Or a classic one that I'll do as well is like I'll read one page and it's like the hungry caterpillar popped out of the egg, and then he skips to the end and now he's a butterfly.
Yeah. What happened in between?
Magic.
Who knows? It's a mystery. We got a couple of other good suggestions. Mallory suggests Caps for Sale. I see the cover of it. It looks like maybe kind of an old book. It's by, I don't know if I can say this right, Esfer Slobodkina. That might be a Russian book.
Wow.
That's interesting. And then Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, Karina recommended that one. We also got a recommendation from Javier, who is our listener in South America. His recommendation, which is, I'm guessing, a Spanish language book. I apologize if I butcher this. Perico Trepa por Chile. The story of a boy who travels through the country from south to north. My older son's favorite is El Dragón Color Frambuesa. Wow. By George Bidlinsky, who's an Austrian author. Wow, we are getting really international with these.
Yeah, I heard dragon in there maybe, so that's something.
Yeah. That's really... And of course, all these books get translated into different languages, so that's something that you might be able to find in your area. I gotta take a water break.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Talking too much.
I think we nailed it pretty much. All right, let me grab a joke.
All right. So that'll about do it for this week's episode. Really our point with all of this is that there are so many different books to read. These are just some of our favorites and some of our listeners' favorites. It can get a little overwhelming to go to the store or go to the library and not know which book to get. So, start with some of these and figure out like what is going to be fun for your kid to read and to read with you and to interact with. That's the best way to go about it. And no matter what you do, just get into it. Don't put it off. Got nothing else to say.
There you go. It's easy, people. It's so easy. Don't make Jesse work any harder on this one.
Don't make me pontificate about this. But it's a good place to wrap up this week's episode. So once again, Brandon, if our listeners want to reach out to us between this week and next week, where can they find us?
Please give us a like or a follow on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at Dadsplaining Podcast. We are now rocking both Facebook Live. You can check out every episode every week, and Periscope on Twitter as well. Hello to anybody who is now going to be watching us on Twitter. And then reach out to us directly at dadsplainingpodcast@gmail.com. And then you can find this episode and every episode every week anywhere you get your podcasts.
Exactly. And if you're enjoying us, please share us with fellow parents, in the new parent phase, like when they're really looking for advice. We're not experts, obviously, but we've got a little bit to share based on what we've learned so far. So, share us. That's the best way to support us, really. Next week, we're going to have a cool interview with Lorenzo, who is a new father. We're going to hear all about his journey. But between now and then, until next week, thanks for listening. I'm Jesse.
And I'm Brandon.
And this week's dad joke comes courtesy of Dad Says Jokes. Let me pull it up here. Brandon, what do you call it when a pig loses his memory?
I don't know. Pygmalion. I don't know.
Hamnesia.
Hamnesia. Oh, wow. Well, Jesse, did you hear about the guy who invented lifesavers?
No.
They say he made a mint.
A mint?
Yeah, he did.
A mint.
And we leave you with that. Thank you for listening.
I love it. All right. All right, Facebook, thanks for staying tuned. Mm-hmm. We will see you guys next time.
Love this highbrow dad joke humor.
Too. I don't think anyone was watching, but that's fine.
But you will be.
You can tell I love these ones that make you think here. Yeah.